faithfully conveying value, interpreting great books worldwide. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today's book is Leviathan, subtitled A History of Whaling in America. In ancient Western legends, Leviathan was a colossal sea monster. Later, it's speculated its prototype may have been whales. Whales aren't fish, they're mammals. When referring to whales alone, the book customarily calls them whales. We'll follow that convention here. Humans have hunted whales for over 1,000 years, not just for meat, but for whale oil, baleen, ambergris, and other products. Japan, Norway, England, the Netherlands, and the US were major whaling nations. America once had the world's largest whaling fleet, with whaling becoming its fifth largest industry. So how did American whaling develop? What was whalers' daily life like? How did U.S. whaling rise to glory, and why did it decline? This book will unravel these mysteries. Author Eric J. Dolan is an environmental historian and science writer with an MIT PhD in environmental policy. He's worked extensively in conservation and fisheries policy, with expertise in wildlife and American history. Dolan has been fascinated by whales and whaling history since childhood. Drawing from extensive historical sources, he recreates with rich detail the American whaling industry's rise in colonial times, 19th century golden age peak, and early 20th century decline. All right, I'll explore the book's main content through three key questions. First, how did American whaling emerge? Second, how did American whaling flourish? Third, what caused American whaling's decline? Let's begin with the first question. How did American whaling emerge? This section covers historical background of American whaling. When did humans start hunting whales? The exact timing remains unverifiable, but fragmented historical evidence suggests ancient peoples likely discovered stranded whales accidentally. Initially, they harvested whale meat for food and used whale bones for construction. Later, discovering more valuable uses, people began actively hunting whales at sea. Commercial whaling dates back to the Basques, indigenous people who lived between Spain and France. The Basque region, bordering the Bay of Biscay, had rich whale resources, so they mastered excellent whaling and navigation skills early on. As early as the 7th century, the Basques had developed a complete whaling process. They built stone towers on the coast. Lookouts would climb up to spot whale trails, and upon finding one, signal by drumming or smoke. Whalers, upon getting the message, would take harpoons and row out to sea to hunt whales. So how did Basque whaling become commercialized? Historians believe Catholicism played a key role in this. Because religious holidays required abstinence, the church decreed that believers couldn't eat red meat from livestock during those times. Animals living in water, considered cold-natured white meat, could be eaten. With 166 religious holidays a year, the Basques seized the chance to sell whale, cod, and other white meat foods to Catholics. Besides fresh and cured whale meat, the Basques sold many other whale products. For example, baleen could make ladies' hoop skirts, decorations on knights' helmets, and stiff brushes. Additionally, whale vertebrae and ribs made chairs and fences. Whale oil served as lubricant, lighting material, soap, and paint. They even sold whale excrement to make red dye. The Basques dominated medieval whaling. By the 1540s, their range had crossed the North Atlantic to eastern Canadian waters. Whale products brought huge profits to the Basques, attracting Iceland, Norway, France, and others to join whaling. By the late 16th century, England also joined the whalers. They set their sights on the American colonies. In 1614, English explorer Captain John Smith embarked on an expedition to America, initially to North Virginia, which he renamed New England. One of his tasks was to find new whaling grounds. Sadly, although he saw many whales there, they were hard to catch because he encountered fast-swimming fin whales, and the expedition failed. Smith refused to give up, but 2 subsequent trips to America also ended in failure. Given his terrible luck, no investors were willing to risk funding his voyages anymore. So Smith wrote a book about his experiences in New England. including detailed maps, hoping to attract interested investors. Soon, English Puritans took notice of the book. Fleeing persecution by the Church of England, they decided to emigrate to America. To Captain Smith's disappointment, the Puritans didn't hire him as a guide, taking only his book aboard the Mayflower. In September 1620, the Mayflower set sail from England toward the New World. It carried 102 people, Puritans along with poor farmers, fishermen, craftsmen, and indentured servants. After over 2 months at sea, the Mayflower reached New England. To their amazement, the sea teemed with unbelievable numbers of whales. As the ship anchored, whales approached, each representing immense wealth. One passenger wrote in his diary, "If we could catch whales, we'd sell oil worth 3,000 to 4,000 pounds." But the fishermen aboard only had experience catching cod, large ones being just 1 meter long and 10 to 15 kilograms. Facing 20-meter-long 100-ton giants, they were completely helpless. Some tried shooting at whales with guns, but the whales remained unharmed. They spouted and swam away. Reality was harsh. Before dreaming of whale profits, the settlers first had to survive winter in this desolate place. Battling hunger, cold, and disease, only about 50 survived. These survivors made it through by fishing, hunting, and farming. For the next decade, newcomers to New England didn't start whaling. Busy with farming and fishing, they had no time. Yet, whales remained part of their lives as stranded whales frequently appeared along the coast. Records show someone walking between East Hampton and Bridgehampton found 13 beached whales. Ownership of these stranded whales often sparked disputes. So, colonial administrators issued a decree stating that discoverers, cutters, Native Americans, and others could participate in whale distribution. Subsequently, the colonial government got involved too, with too many people sharing profits and whale strandings being random in time and location. Some settlers grew tired of waiting for whales to wash ashore. In the 1650s, they began rowing small boats to actively hunt whales within a few kilometers of the coast, supplementing their livelihoods like farming and fishing. Above, we've covered the first question: how did American whaling emerge? Due to whales' immense value, commercial whaling has a long history. America had abundant whale resources, attracting colonists who first searched for stranded whales on the coast and began coastal whaling. Well, so, how did the American whaling industry thrive? This is the second question we'll discuss today. American whaling's rise involved two stages. First, the colonial era, marking the start from coastal to deep-sea whaling. Second, after America's founding, expanding from deep-sea to oceanic whaling, the Golden Era. First, we'll cover stage one, how whaling evolved from coastal to deep-sea whaling. In the late 17th to early 18th century, those actively hunting whales in the American colonies united to form whaling companies and hired Native Americans for coastal whaling activities. Coastal areas had abundant right whales and humpback whales. Right whales are about 20 meters long, weighing up to 100 tons. Humpbacks are smaller, around 10 meters, weighing only 30 tons. They're docile and slow swimming, making them easy prey, so they became the main targets. A traditional whaling hunt unfolds like this. Once the lookout spots a whale, whalers row small boats to approach it. The harpooner stands at the bow, throwing the harpoon. Its head is tied to a rope over 2 meters long, secured to the boat. The injured whale frantically drags the boat, but the boat's buoyancy prevents it from diving deep. When the whale is exhausted, whalers use a lance to pierce its lungs, killing it outright. Finally, the whaling ship drags the whale to the sandy shore, and processing starts right away. Otherwise, if it takes too long, the whale carcass bloats into a huge balloon from decay gases. The poor soul tasked with popping it is the unluckiest. With a loud pop, the released gases instantly blanket the area for miles in a foul stench. So, the cutters must act fast. They first slice off the whale's lips and snip the baleen from its upper jaw. Once dried, the baleen can be shipped and sold. Ah. Baleen is lightweight, highly elastic, and moldable, great for making clothes, umbrellas, walking sticks, and essential for women's corsets and hoop skirts.
Next, cutters use sharp knives to peel the thick blubber into strips, then haul the carcass ashore with ropes.
Cutting. Most of the leftover whale meat and skeleton are seen as worthless and dumped back in the water. And after letting it rot, the blubber is loaded onto carts, taken to refineries, cut into chunks, boiled in huge pots around the clock, and finally melted into whale oil. Whale oil is an excellent lighting material. In the 17th to 18th centuries, besides whale oil, other main lighting materials included turpentine, candles, firewood, cod oil, and lard. But compared to others, whale oil was brighter and odorless, winning people over and dominating the lighting market. Thus, whale oil became a key export commodity for the North American colonies. Both colonial traders and whalers made huge profits. Reportedly, a whaler's earnings from one whale equaled half a year's wages for a land worker. Driven by massive profits, coastal whaling spread along the entire North American coast in the early 1800th century, leading to a sharp drop in whale numbers. Ships had nothing left to hunt. Wow. An old man recalled in his 1762 diary scenes from his youth. At least 2,000 whales swimming in the harbor bay, enough to form an 11-kilometer bridge, but those days are gone forever. However, the decline in coastal whales didn't mean the whaling industry was dying out. As European urbanizations sped up, demand for city lighting grew, requiring more high-quality lighting materials. In 1712, a whaler from Nantucket Island was blown deep into the ocean by strong northerly winds, while coastal whaling accidentally discovering a large pod of sperm whales and successfully hunting one. Nantucket Island, located 48 kilometers south of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, sits near whale migration routes with abundant whale resources. Driven by huge profits, colonial whaling expanded to deep-sea waters starting in the 1720s, making Nantucket the hub for deep-sea whaling. The main target of deep-sea whaling was the sperm whale, about 15 meters long and weighing up to 50 tons, with its massive head accounting for nearly one-third of its body length. When threatened, they violently ram objects with their heads. So unlike the slow-moving right and humpback whales, sperm whales are agile, fierce, and more dangerous. Just how difficult were sperm whales to hunt? As recorded in a whaler's diary, whales around us were as numerous as swarming bees, yet just as chaotic. We couldn't harpoon a single one. Nevertheless, sperm whales carried highly valuable blubber, spermaceti oil, and their unique ambergris, making the risk worthwhile for whalers. Though sperm whale blubber isn't as thick as a right whale's, the extracted oil burns cleaner and is more valuable. The grade of sperm whale oil varied depending on the blubber's decay level. Since deep-sea whaling voyages lasted weeks to months at sea, to prevent spoilage during storage, whalers built brick stoves on the main deck with large iron pots, turning ships into floating refineries. By the mid-1800th century, this became standard practice across the whaling industry. And thus, whaling ships grew larger, evolving from 38-ton single-masted coastal vessels to near 100-ton ships with one or two masts, each carrying up to 13 crew and 2 whaleboats. About 6 to 7 meters long, these fast whaleboats could be quickly launched or retrieved from the mothership for pursuing whales. Sperm whales, spermaceti oil from their heads, was not only premium lighting material, but considered a cure-all panacea, even believed to slow aging, so it was sold as lotions, creams, and medicines. To extract spermaceti oil, whalers would drill a hole in the sperm whale's head and use a long pole with a bucket attached to scoop it out. Sometimes, for efficiency, crewmen would actually climb inside the sperm whale's head to scoop essentially bathing in spermaceti oil. By the mid-18th century, a new technology emerged. Spermaceti candles, which were more attractive, longer burning, and brighter than regular candles. They didn't produce greasy stains when burning. Boston newspapers even ran special ads for spermaceti candles at the time. Soon, they were sold as luxury goods to wealthy elites across America and Europe. Beyond oil and spermaceti, sperm whales produced precious ambergris, extremely rare, gold valued, used as incense or added to food. King Charles II of England's favorite dish was eggs with ambergris. Ambergris's primary use was as a perfume fixative, making scents last longer. For centuries, ambergris's origin puzzled people, with theories ranging from fish livers and bird droppings to marine fungi. Ancient Chinese even believed it was dragon saliva coughed up by the Dragon King. The origin of its Chinese name, Long Xiang Xiang. Long Xiang literally means dragon saliva. Actually, ambergris forms in sperm whales' intestines when undigested squid beaks trigger secretion of a waxy substance. That's ambergris, but finding it during a hunt was pure luck.
In 1858, the whaler Watcher luckily brought back 800 pounds of ambergris, selling for $10,000, half a year's voyage earnings.
Driven by huge profits, deep-sea whaling boomed until the American Revolution erupted in 1775. Nearly 400 whaling ships sailed yearly, producing 45,000 barrels of sperm oil, 8,500 barrels of regular whale oil, and 34 tons of baleen, making whale products New England's top income source. Later, due to the American Revolutionary War and the War of 1812, many whaling ships and sailors were drafted, severely impacting the American whaling industry. But after the wars ended, American whalers quickly returned to whaling with great enthusiasm. This was because, in the late 18th century, European and American countries began the Industrial Revolution, requiring large amounts of lubricant for machine production. Whale oil, especially sperm whale oil, had the best lubricating effect and became the preferred industrial lubricant. To obtain more whale oil from the 1820s, American whalers began oceanic whaling, ushering in the golden age of American whaling. By 1846, there were 735 American whaling ships, while the total number worldwide was only 900. The operational range of American whaling ships expanded from the central and southern North Atlantic to the northwestern Indian Ocean and Pacific. In 1848, they even opened whaling grounds in the Arctic Ocean. To adapt to oceanic voyages, resist storms, waves, and whale attacks, whaling ships of this period were technologically improved into three-masted ships with blunt bows and square sterns. These ships were over 30 meters long, about 8 meters wide, weighing over 300 tons, carrying more than 30 crew members and 5 whale boats, with cargo holds holding up to 3,000 barrels. During this period, whaling tools also underwent innovations. Since the beginning of whaling, Americans had been using hand-thrown harpoons, a method with low success rates. Whales easily escaped, and even experienced whalers had less than 50% success. In the mid-19th century, a blacksmith named Lewis Temple invented a new toggle harpoon that could effectively reduce the chance of whales escaping. In the middle, it's not. Thanks to the efforts of whalers, the profits were substantial, and whaling became the 5th largest industry in the U.S., following agriculture, manufacturing, and others. Additionally, since oceanic whaling voyages took a long time, averaging nearly 4 years, whaling ships needed coastal ports as temporary stops, which allowed several ports to develop. For example, Honolulu and Lahaina in Hawaii, and San Francisco on the U.S. West Coast. During its peak, American whaling not only greatly boosted the U.S. economy, but also positively influenced American culture and ocean exploration. In the cultural sphere, the Golden Age produced many literary works reflecting the era's characteristics. The most outstanding is undoubtedly Herman Melville's Moby Dick. The Golden Age also inspired painters like Benjamin Russell, who created a 395-meter panoramic whaling voyage painting. Whalers carved artworks on whale bones, baleen, and teeth, with high-quality pieces being extremely valuable. For instance, many still collect sperm whale tooth carvings today. Voyages also accumulated knowledge about ocean currents and shipping routes, advancing marine research. American whalers discovered over 200 islands during global voyages. Additionally, captains' logbooks provided valuable corrections to existing nautical charts and helped oceanographers map new routes, including charts, trade wind maps, pilot charts, thermal analysis charts, storm analysis charts, etc. All right, that concludes the book's second question. How did American whaling thrive? Due to depleting coastal whale resources and European American lighting demands, U.S. whaling expanded from coastal to deep-sea hunting. With Europe's Industrial Revolution, whale oil became increasingly vital for industrial lubrication. Driven by massive market forces, American whaling entered the Oceanic era, reaching its peak. America's prosperous whaling industry lasted until 1861. When the Civil War erupted, it reduced whaling labor and destroyed many ships. But post-war, whaling never regained its glory, entering prolonged decline instead. By the early 20th century, it faded away. When WWN ended in 1918, New Bedford was America's sole whaling port with under 12 ships. So what caused American whaling's decline? This is today's third question. Overall, there are three main reasons. First, whaling was extremely dangerous, with fleets and whalers constantly facing multiple threats. The most direct danger came from whale attacks. For example, the whaler Essex was rammed and sunk by an enraged sperm whale while hunting in the Pacific. Its 20 crew split into 3 whaleboats, drifting over 3 months, with no water and scarce food. Starving men ate dead comrades' bodies. After consuming them, they drew lots to decide who'd die. Only 8 survived. Harsh weather at sea is equally dangerous, especially in the Arctic. Floating ice, extreme cold, freezing waters, and sudden gales are unavoidable hazards. For instance, in 1871, the Northern Fleet got trapped by shoals and ice floes during Arctic whaling due to shifting winds. 3 whalers sank after ice collisions. Captains and crews abandoned ship, rowing whaleboats through fierce winds and towering waves. Though no lives were lost, the fleet lost 33 ships, worth $1.06. The appalling work and living conditions aboard were another risk. For most whalers, whaling was grueling, low-status work, and processing blubber was like a mini-hell. Processing lasted 3 days. Crews worked 18-hour shifts on filthy decks, slipping in grease, surrounded by firelight and bloodstains, pure hellish. In that environment, men felt suffocated, even dreaming of being buried under mounting blubber piles. Living quarters were awful too, cramped, dark spaces squeezed over 20 bunks. Crews slept on straw or corn husk mattresses amid whale oil grime, rats, and cockroaches. One whaler described his berth as less than half as clean as a Kentucky pigsty, and the food unbearable. After weeks or months at sea, provisions spoiled. Sailors endured rotten meat stench, eating slop worse than swill. Even successful voyages paid little. After complex accounting, profits were slim. Ship owners took 70% of profits. Ordinary crew earned pennies, averaging 20 cents daily. Many voyages returned empty-handed after years. The whaler Ceres sailed 2.5 years for just a few hundred barrels of sperm oil. To save face, the captain ordered empty barrels filled with seawater to fake a full haul. But whaling's real downfall? Plummeting demand for whale oil. Due to higher costs and time required to hunt sperm whales, whale oil prices soared dramatically. Meanwhile, gas and kerosene became whale oil substitutes, cheaper and brighter. By the late 1850s, Gas and kerosene lamps illuminated millions of American homes. In the 1860s, petroleum emerged, replacing whale oil for lighting and lubricants while being cheaper and more abundant. A contemporary magazine cartoon depicted Scene 1. Whales in ball gowns, celebrating Pennsylvania oil discoveries. Scene 2. Our land oil wells will never dry up. No more weeping over our blubber.
Statistics reveal the massive gap between whale oil and petroleum output.
In 1862, U.S. whalers produced 155,000 barrels of whale oil versus Pennsylvania's 3 million barrels of crude. Many whalers and oil merchants switched to the petroleum industry. Whaling was no longer a golden industry. Its decline became inevitable. Additionally, whalers' mass hunting depleted whale populations. They also permanently harmed other species like tortoises and walruses. As environmental awareness grew, more people joined animal conservation. Environmentalists publicly urged ending uncontrolled hunting to save whales from extinction, another key reason for the industry's decline. These three factors doomed American whaling. After America's decline, Norway filled the market gap. Norwegians innovated whaling tech, explosive harpoon cannons, steam-powered ships to chase fast whales, and expanded targets to abundant species like blue and fin whales. They utilized whales efficiently, processing meat for food and grinding waste into powder. As fertilizer, they also used whales to produce glue, vitamins, etc., and with new processing techniques, turned whale oil into soap and margarine. In the early 20th century, Japan and Russia also became major whaling powers. So, later, Germany, the Netherlands, the UK, and others built more efficient large-scale whaling factory fleets. It's estimated that in the 20th century alone, about 2 million whales were killed just in the southern hemisphere. In the late 20th century, as whale numbers plummeted and marine conservation awareness grew, commercial whaling was strictly limited and fully banned by 1986. But some countries still ignore the ban and continue commercial whaling. Many whale species are endangered, and conservation efforts remain a long and challenging task. Thus concludes the main content of Leviathan, a history of whaling in America. We've witnessed the rise and fall of the whaling industry over 3 centuries in the U.S. Though whaling has exited the stage of history, it left us valuable experience in ocean exploration and constantly reminds us to consider harmonious coexistence between humanity, nature, and the sea. All right, that's all for Leviathan, a history of whaling in America. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.